Shalom everybody and welcome back. We're going to be looking at the topic of the coming of the Messiah and some of the things. How do we know if we're getting closer to that time? And we're going to be also looking at some of the insights from this weekly Torah portion, which we do every week. And we try to tie the two concepts together. Now, the Torah portion is called Tazria Metzora. It's a double portion. And it's really about a skin condition called Tzara'at that would come on the surface of one's skin when beneath the skin, underneath the layer, there was something going on that needed to be worked out, usually a severe imbalance of some sort, an emotional or spiritual or moral imbalance that would lead one to lead a life of sin and make a history of bad decisions, right? So in order to fix this perpetual behavior of bad habits and spiritual illness, one would notice whether they were afflicted with Tzara'at. It's a skin condition, but it's often translated as leprosy, right? So in the English, because there is no word for it in English, because it's a non-existent phenomena in our day and age, they call it leprosy. Okay, but so if I refer to leprosy, which is a medical condition, this is not anything to do with that. Anyways, the verse we want to be looking at, that's very interesting for us, comes from the Talmud. And the Talmud makes a reference that the Messiah, HaMashiach, will be like a leper of his generation. It'll be as if it is one who is afflicted with Tzara'at, which is only a external manifestation of an affliction that really is pointing to something much more problematic beneath the layer. It's a spiritual illness that results in a physical way. Before we analyze why the Talmud would make such a statement, we want to give the first insight. The first insight comes from the Parsha itself, that it says that it is when someone is afflicted with this condition, one goes to the spiritual guide, which is the priest. The priest in this situation does not heal the affliction, but rather makes the decision whether the one with Tzara'at must go into quarantine or not. So here's the interesting thing about this insight, okay? It begins with the question, why would someone go into quarantine when we learn from our sages that this was not a contagious condition? Okay, so it's a very interesting question. Why does one go into isolation? They remove themselves from the camp for a period of time, and the priest then determines when their re-entry is, when they're ready to re-enter the camp of Israel. So the question is why the isolation? Okay, why the isolation when it's not contagious? Well, if you look at the original explanation of what Tzara'at is, we never said it's a medical condition. We know that it's not contagious, but what we do know is it comes from something beneath the surface that is beginning to expose itself. And when that happens, the first insight is that the Torah mandates a period of retreat. The dynamic hasn't changed today. Perhaps we do not have Tzara'at, but the Torah is saying when there is an emotional or spiritual imbalance, it is okay to take time away, to get a better hold of yourself and to know what it is beneath the surface that is beginning to be revealed and exposed. Okay, so what does this have to do with Mashiach? What does this have to do with the Messiah? So the time we're in now, the closer we get to the Messianic age, the more things that were usually beneath the surface begin to expose itself. This is what our sages teach us, okay? And the time we're in now, we're seeing a lot of that happening. So don't be surprised if you're going to see more and more of that, because that's part of the necessary phase that we're going to go into. Is anything within humanity, within a nation, within a society, within a family, within a marriage, within oneself, begins to come to surface. Why? In order that it be cleared. The clearing takes time after one goes into retreat, coupled by self-introspection, coupled by one's doing a personal inventory of what's going on. And once we deal with all this kind of karmic junk from our misdirected choices we've made in life, once that is cleared, which in Hebrew is called birur, okay, once it is cleared, sifted away, one joins life again. One joins the family, society, the camp of Israel, basically. So the second insight is that when the Messiah, it says the Messiah is going to be a leper himself, it's not just the person Messiah we're talking about, because the Talmud also talks about a Messianic age. So when the Talmud says the Messiah will be a leper, we need to first understand what's going on. What does it mean, Messiah? Okay, because in the Talmud and in Judaism in general, there's three different aspects of Mashiach or Messiah. Messiah is a person, Messiah is an age, and Messiah is a state of consciousness. Where do we see this? Okay, the Messiah, the person, that's the most well-known fact. From the house of David, a leader, a human being, not the Son of God, not a deity, not a supreme being, a human being just like Moses was. He's a great prophetic leader that guides us in the new way of living. Okay? And that is the most well-known aspect of Messiah. The second one is the Messianic age. There is a time clock. The Talmud, we're not going to get into it in this video, but we're in that process where we're very, very, very near to a great awakening, but it happens in stages. The stage we're in right now, as we said before, the Hebrew word birur means literally sifting. When you sift the shafts from the wheat, the kernels, the shells from a grain, okay? So that is called birur in agriculture, but mystically speaking, we're going through the same sifting process. We're separating that which is useful for us in our evolution from the useless, which is bringing us down. And both of them come to surface, and because they come to surface, whether it's through media, whether it's through the news, whether it's through your personal relationships, whether it's through family dynamics, it doesn't matter. Everything gets brought from underneath the surface to the external layer of the surface to be sifted and to be cleared. Okay? And this happens during a specific time period in history, which is now, literally now. This is a spiritual work that we need to be focusing on. That was a second insight. Now, we also said that Mashiach is a state of consciousness, which means the Talmud says that everybody has a spark of Mashiach, or a spark of the Messiah in them, which is called Nitzutzei Mashiach, the sparks of Mashiach. Each person is a spiritual or physical descendant of Adam, so we have the sparks of Adam in us. Each one has a part of Adam in us. So likewise, each one of us has a part of the Messiah in us. So in the coming and the revealing of Messiah, it's also an energy, it's a force, it's a global dynamic where humanity begins to wake up from their slumber, from their sleep. And ultimately, this is the tikkun, the fixing of Adam himself. So, when this age comes, surely around that time a teacher comes, and surely around the same time, this all happens simultaneously, there is a new consciousness, a higher way of seeing the world through new eyes. But it takes work, which comes to the third and final insight. So when the students of this Talmudic sage, the students came to their Rebbe and they asked him, They said, what do we do when we're coming closer and closer to that Messianic time and all of this is beginning to happen? Everything's coming to the surface. Everything's beginning to be exposed. And there's going to be, like, the coming of Mashiach is described as a birth. And so the labor pains, the contractions that begin to happen before this dawning of this new age, it hurts, it's painful, it's confusing. Not everybody makes it, in fact. A lot of people break down because it is challenging, it is testing. So what does the students want to know? How do we survive? Rebbe, teacher, tell us, how do we make it through? Rav Elazar's students asked him, what shall a person do to be spared from the pains preceding the coming of the Messiah? Rav said to them, they shall engage in Torah study and acts of loving kindness. And the Rebbe answered, there's two ways. One is on the spiritual level and one is on the physical level. And the spiritual level is through Torah study, because Torah study reveals the greater good in the spiritual realm and also the spiritual part of ourselves. So it allows us to have clarity, to have focus, to have protection, to have insight, to have wisdom, to have courage, to make it through the difficult times, the birthing contractions of the hard labor that happens before a great birth comes into the world. So the greater good on a spiritual level is brought through the learning of Torah, such as what we attempt to do weekly here on this channel. The second insight is what is the greater good that can be brought in the physical realm, and it's quite easy and simple, but it is it's becoming a rare commodity today in today's marketplace, and that is just loving kindness. So the Rebbe said, if you practice Torah study and loving kindness, you're going to bring out the greater good on a gashmiut level, on a physical, material existence level. So this is insight number 3. So let me summarize, okay? First, it's okay to take time away from everything when it's getting overwhelming. In fact, not is it only okay, it's biblical wisdom. It's Torah guidance. The second thing is that we're going into a process, or have been in a process, of birur, which means clarification, or the sifting of that which is valuable, that which is gold, that which you should be focusing on, and separating it from that which is useless and a distraction or nonsense or part of the mind pollution that is being generated daily in the media and in the world and in society. Okay, so separate yourself, focus on the useful versus the useless. And the third insight is to increase your study, your spiritual study, whether it's Torah study or whatever guidance system. Increase the wisdom, the insight, because that's going to build strength. And in a world where there are no men or women, it's a Talmudic phrase, you still have a requirement to be a man, which means in a world where there's no more loving kindness, you still got to be the channel for that in your everyday life and in your personal relationships. Increase the good. Increase the good. But give to yourself first. Retreat is giving to yourself, getting everything straight with yourself. Then you start sifting. And third, you start generating good in the spiritual realm, in the physical realm. These are the insights of our this week's study, inspired by the Torah portion, and the special and unique time we're living in today. God bless, and I'll see you guys again, God willing, soon, maybe next week, from strength to strength, blessing to blessing. If This is being recorded in Chol HaMoed Pesach, so I can say Happy Passover still to you as we're going soon into the end of it.
Pesach Sameach, Pesach Sameach, good Passover, Chol HaMoed Pesach. Hope everybody's having a great holiday. Pesach Sameach.
God bless, be strong and be mighty and stay blessed.
Blessed friends, blessed.